Hey, welcome to Onward Shift, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to start by saying thank you to those who have followed our journey. I really appreciate you bearing with us as we improve. And if you're a first timer here, then welcome aboard. I hope you take something away from today and it hopefully implements something positive in your life. So I want to start by talking about some feedback I got on the last podcast. As you probably know, I'm super open, super transparent, and I'm happy to share this feedback. Now, thankfully, it's positive feedback. The positive feedback was people found it a bit more relaxed, a bit more not rehearsed, if you like. So I'm actually going to do the same thing as I did in the last podcast with this one, and that's freestyle it. So what I mean by freestyle it is my first few podcasts, I spent hours and hours and hours writing a script, and then I'd read that script. But it was a bit boring, I guess. It was a bit too structured, a bit too predictable. So with this one, same as my last one, I'm going to freestyle it. So bear with me. Sorry about the ums, the ahs, and the long pauses, because I guarantee you there will be a handful of them. But let's get into the podcast. I want to talk to you about the last podcast, which was all about my entrepreneurial journey with VDN Electrics, my first company. I'm not going to bore you with all the details again. If you do want to listen to it, then please do check it out. But I think it's important to just touch on a few topics so that we can swiftly move on to this podcast. So the last podcast was all about my highs and my lows. My highs being running an electrical business. We've done residential installs, commercial installs, and we've done a bit of industrial testing. And the lows were I suffered from mental health issues for about a year. Now, from the year, I learned to progress and move forward with, a variety of things which helped me, like coaching and just implementing small changes. But today's podcast will be all about Onward Shift and how the transition was, and hopefully this reaches out to anyone who is looking to make that jump. So I'm going to start with a Q&A. Now, the Q&A is questions that I've been asked a number of times in networking events, through family, through friends. So the first question I always get asked is, seriously, you're going to leave being an electrician? Well, the truth is, yes, of course I am. I spent 14 years in that industry. I started right at the bottom, sweeping floors for, I think I was working for about 40 quid over 3 days. So you can imagine, I started right at the bottom. And, I worked my way up to have some really, really, prestigious jobs throughout my years as an electrician. And from there, I even started my own company. I felt as if I've been there for too long, in the industry, meaning, and it was time for a change. And that change was, for me, all about implementing a positive change. So, simple answer to why did I leave being an electrician was, one, I had enough. I couldn't continue, the next 40 years doing that one thing. And two is, I don't think it was a part of my meaning and purpose. I think there's this part of me that's always, I guess, struggling to find the words, but I guess a part of me is telling me that I should be doing more. And what I was doing, being an electrician, was sort of holding me back from doing that one thing that I really wanted to do. And that one thing I really wanted to do was to, as cliche as this sounds, but change the world. I even wrote that in a permanent marker in my hallway where I had a reflection wall. So, the reason I left being an electrician was those two things. One, I had enough, and two, I wasn't fulfilled doing that because I really and truly wanted to help people and implement a positive change. Now, the second question I was asked is, why start Onward Shift? So the reason I started Onward Shift was, funnily enough, it actually was going to start with just a journal. So I was actually just going to design a bespoke journal and to help people organize their days, and that was it. But the more and more and more I thought about it, the more I fell in love with the idea that I can actually help more and more and more people in so many different ways. So the reason I started Onward Shift was to create a platform where anybody can come to get free support or paid support in as many different ways as possible. So Onward Shift started being as a journal, and now we've expanded into coaching, accountability groups, podcasting, events, products, and blogs. Now, we've only been going for a few months, so there's a lot to take in as someone who's creating it, but also for those who are on our journey, I'm hoping you guys see the positive effect it's having, and also hopefully seeing us improve as each week goes on. So yeah, I think it's important also to talk about the next question, which is, where do I see Onward Shift going? Like, what's the point of it? Well, the point is, and where I see it going, is the whole vision is to implement a positive change to as many people as possible in as many different ways as possible. So I will say on this podcast, something that I'm working on for the website is actually creating a page on the website so people can go onto it and, for example, put an idea on. Let's say they want a yoga class in London. So if enough people want that, I am going to try my best to go create that. That's just one example, but there's going to be, whatever anyone can imagine. It could be a walk and talk in Hyde Park. It could be loads of different things. Whatever people decide to do, and if it gets enough likes, I will go off and create that. So I guess that's one part of where do I see us going. I also think we're going to, focus a lot more attention on the company in general. So we've already got exceptional coaches. For example, our ADHD coach has over 20 years experience. Our career coach has over 30 years experience. But all the coaches have, a lot of experience. And I think that's really, really important. We continue growing. The coaches we get on board will be, exceptional coaches. The accountability groups will increase. So, for example, if you have a group that you want to be a part of but you can't find, then that's not a problem. We will create a new group, because it's impossible to say you're the only person in the world who has that same goal. Somebody else will have that goal. We've just got to find them. So yeah, and even the podcast, I initially started by saying that I wanted guests, and I do. But the reason I'm talking into the microphone by myself at the moment is to build my confidence, to have guests on board, and then they'll be interviewed. So that vision hasn't gone. It's just I also have to start at the bottom and work my way up. And then the events, again, the events are starting with walk and talks, but I've got big visions for the events. I don't want it to just be walk and talks. As time goes on, I would love to expand that into several different fields, all revolving around improving mental health. And even the blogs, we're not just going to be talking about random stuff. It's all going to be implementing a change. So that's where I see Onward Shift going. It's all about the future. It's all about helping as many people in as many ways as possible. It's all about changing mindsets for the better. And yeah, the whole vision, the whole passion, the whole drive, the whole everything about Onward Shift for me is implementing a positive change and helping as many people as I possibly can on this journey. This is, again, quite personal, but I will say it. When I was a bit younger, I had this vision of I desperately wanted to work hard enough to buy an Aston Martin and have a gated house. So it's weird. the older I get, the more I realise before I die, it's a bit morbid, but everyone unfortunately dies. Before I die and close my eyes, I want to have that thought of I've done good. An Aston Martin and a gated house would be great. If I get that in the journey, awesome, but that's not my sole driver anymore. It's all about just being there for people. So yeah, that's why Onward Shift was created. That's literally the reason why I left being an electrician, and the passion just comes from you guys who tune in and follow us, and just that thought of just being there for someone who might need it. Yeah, you can't put a price on that. So yeah, it's incredible. I'm really proud of Onward Shift. Talking about all of that made me realise there was times in my life where I didn't believe in myself. And to be completely honest with you, I remember unblocking toilets. I remember unscrewing bottle traps of urinals because someone's puked in it. I used to work in maintenance, so it was pretty much every week I'd be doing something like that. And I was proper bogged down. Like, I don't know if anyone has been in that position where they genuinely hate what they're doing, but they have to turn up every single day because they have to pay the bills, etc., etc. And I did that for years, to be honest with you. I unblocked toilets. God, it was just like, yeah, even jumping up on fan coil units and cleaning out the filters and stuff like that, or walking into air handling units in commercial buildings, changing the filters. PPE wasn't a massive thing, so just be breathing in all that dust and whatever else has been picked up. So yeah, I've been there. Like, I completely get it. I've walked into toilets which have been completely flooded of the number twos, and yeah, just cracked on and done what I had to do, get the job done. That was it. So I definitely have been in a place where I didn't want to be there, and I didn't believe in myself. But I think it's really, really, really important to never stop believing in yourself. And that's strong coming from me because I still suffer from imposter syndrome pretty much every single day. Sometimes even sending an email. But you have to believe in yourself. If you've got this vision and this goal and this ambition to be something different, to do something different, that could be from your fitness. If you want, I don't know, if you want to run a mile a day, or if you want to be a CEO, or if you want to start your own company, believe in yourself and you will get there. It's hard work, as everyone already knows. Everyone preaches the same thing. It is genuinely hard. It's not easy to pursue what you believe in, but you have to, right? Like, that's the sole purpose of having visions and dreams and goals. There's so many people who do sit on them and they never get around to doing them, and they find loads of reasons not to. But again, I can only talk from experience. I can't obviously talk about other people's personal circumstances. I can only ever talk about my own. And something that I will be open about is, when I wanted to start VDN Electrics, I was also working a full-time job. I was working shift work. So I don't know if you know what shift work is, but I'll explain it. Shift work is where you work. God, this was years ago. Let me try to remember. I think it's something like, don't quote me on this, but something like you work 4 days, you get 4 days off, then you work 3 days, and straight away you work 3 nights. So that's like a 72-hour week, not including travel. And then you get 4 days off, and then you work 4 night shifts, and then you get 6 days off. Sounds awesome, right? Sorry, I forgot to mention each shift is 12 hours, plus an hour travel there, an hour travel back. So they're long days. Sounds awesome. You work half of the month. So 28-day cycle, you work 14 of those days. So yeah, it was genuinely hard. There was one day I'll be eating dinner at like 8 o'clock in the evening, and the next day I'll be eating dinner at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So you can imagine the toll it took on my body. But I believed in VDN Electrics, and I wanted to go pursue a company and start my own thing. So I actually worked 260 plus days straight, Monday to Sunday, with no breaks. Now, I always somehow talk about my partner. She's an incredible woman, and she supported me 100%, even from the first few dates. Now, not a lot of people know this, but I think on our second date, third date, and fourth day, I fell asleep. Yeah, no, 100%. I crashed. Like, I'd have a half-hour kip, and it would be parked up outside her house, and I'd just fall asleep in the car. And at that stage, I had a little smart car. I'd fall asleep, and go home. I'll drive back to Essex from North London. So yeah, I worked and worked and worked, and I pursued that dream, and I pursued that goal, and I believed in myself, and it got to the stage where I could then go completely self-employed and start this company and run with it. So yeah, I think it's so important to believe in yourself, and it will, for me, again, all personal things, it changes your life when you pursue something you're passionate about. Working 8 hours in a job you don't enjoy, that could really take a toll on you. If you work in something you do enjoy or you are passionate about, honestly, 8 hours fly by. You look at the day and go, oh my God, is it already time to finish? There's so many times where I've just carried on. It's like, yeah, I don't really need a break, so I'll carry on. But just bearing in mind, breaks are really, really important, so don't forget to take them. But yeah, no, honestly, if you've got a goal, let's say you've got a vision to start a company, and this is coming from someone who understands, by the way. As I said, I've worked over 260 days straight, Monday to Sunday. I've worked, those were 16-hour days, no worries, no dramas. I just did it, so I get it. It's hard. But if you've got something that you really want to do, just get started. Honestly, just get started. Even if it's something small, like you want to start a business, think of a name. And then from that, think of the next thing. Think of your mission statement. Why do you want to start that company? Think of your USP, your unique selling point. And slowly build that company up to the stage where you're ready to go to market with it and start bringing in customers and doing all your marketing, and all of a sudden, you never know, that could spiral and you're off. But and let's say it doesn't, because there's always a chance that businesses don't work out. Well, that's okay. At least you know that you tried, and that's the most important thing. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I completely get it. Like, I completely get it. There's people out there with children, and they have to go to that job to pay those bills. I completely understand. And it's hard. Like, I'm super fortunate that I'm just super fortunate, I guess. I've managed to take those risks, and here I am today with Onward Shift. But I think it's super important to also understand that don't put so much pressure on yourself that it affects your mental health. I think I could be as motivational as you want me to be, but I also would never want to see my friend, for example, burning out or not allowing that time to spend with his family, or there is a massive thing here called balance, and I think it's really important to pursue your goals and pursue your dreams and pursue your ambitions. But there's also that massive thing where you have to take a step back and allocate time to it. There's always a solution, and sometimes that solution is really not easy to find. But I could be naive here, but I'd like to think that there's always time, even if it's a couple minutes a day, to do something for yourself. Something that I've recently started is, so again, I'll talk about myself. is me and my partner have recently bought a puppy, and he's taken up so much of our time. Literally from nowhere to rely, from 6 a.m. till 11, 12 p.m. a.m. He takes up majority of the time. Yeah, and my fitness has gone completely down the drain. Not only has my puppy taken up my time, Onward Shift has taken up, God, you can imagine, comfortably 13, 14 hours a day. I'm just working. So my fitness has gone completely down the drain, and I really do struggle to find time. I used to love walking. I honestly don't really go for walks anymore, only until last week where I realised I really do need to get out. So what I do now is when I wake up, I spend the first couple of minutes doing a couple of push-ups. Actually, last week I started with just doing 20, and this week I've pushed it to 60. So I do 3 sets of 20 push-ups. And just by doing that small thing, it's kind of triggered me to eat a little bit healthier. And I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like a momentum thing. So I started with 20, gone to 60. My body's kind of like, actually, I shouldn't really be eating a pack of biscuits. Maybe I'll go for a kiwi or something else. So yeah, it's all about momentum. So if you are going through that thing of, I really want to do something, but I don't have the time to do it, start small. You don't have to run in there and go, oh my God, I'm going to start this company. I'm going to go to company's house and create it, blah, 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 blah. Start with a name, then move on to something else. If you found a name, by the way, the next thing you should really do is check if it's available on company's house and to make sure there's a domain there, 123reg, or, whichever other platforms out there will let you know. But that's just another thing. But yeah, I hope this hasn't come across as everyone's got the same amount of time. They don't. We 100% don't. But I'm hoping hopefully you've taken away from this that there's a couple of minutes in that day where you can focus on yourself. And honestly, because it's worked for me, and I hope it works for others. Now, something that a lot of people also ask me is, what's the journey from VDN Electrics, my first company, to my second company, Onward Shift? And I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I'll go through it quickly. So with VDN Electrics, I knew it was time to leave that company. There was no drive there for me anymore. I had enough. And I actually started reading a lot. So I closed the company and I moved into a job, which was a really, really good job. Awesome people, awesome managers, awesome everything. And I guess I can say this now, I had so much free time at this job. It was really, really boring. Drove me insane. So I started reading a lot. And I read this book called 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐞. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's... I'm actually going to read the blurb of this, actually, because I've got it on my desk. It says, discover the Japanese secret to a long, happy life with the international bestselling guide to 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐞. Now, what 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐞 is it kind of divides life into 4 things, and that's what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. Now, for me, all 4 of those things revolved around helping people. And it was at that moment where I decided, that's it. It is time to leave my job and venture onto Onward Shift. And here we are today. Onward Shift, again, started with just wanting to be a journal, but now we have got 5 different divisions open and live, and we've got 6 divisions in coaching, and we've got new things coming. And this is the first week as well, by the way, which we've gone to companies to see if we can support them. So this is actually the first week in marketing because technically we've now launched. So yeah, I hope today's podcast has helped you understand a bit about Onward Shift. And I hope you've learned a little bit more about me, which I think is quite important because I've worked all my life and I understand the struggles of, nobody's ever spoon-fed me money or anything like that. I completely understand the hard work that is involved in just life in general. I get it. I really, really get how hard it is. So yeah, if you've got ambitions and goals, find a way to go pursue them and find that fulfillment. If you're looking for a good book to read, Ikigai, I definitely recommend. And some of the more mainstream ones, like Atomic Habits, is really good. And I don't know if you've come across Stephen Bartlett, but he also does another podcast called Diary of a CEO. Good. And he's got a book called Happy Sexy Millionaire, I believe. I personally found that book to be better than Diary of a CEO, where he gives 33 reasons, but I didn't really like that one, to be fair. But the first one was really good. And there's loads of other books out there. If you want to know the books that I read, then just ping me an email at journey@onwardshift.co.com, and I'll happily send you the list of books that I've read, which I found really inspirational. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then please do send it to your friends and family, because that's the best way that we can grow and reach out to more and more people. Also, if you haven't already checked out Onward Shift's website, please do. It's onwardshift.co.uk or .com, whichever you prefer. And yeah, I would, like all my podcasts, I rely on your feedback to improve. And I don't mind if I hated this podcast, it was rubbish and useless, or if there's a compliment, I'll happily take one of those on board. But yeah, no, honestly, if you can give me any feedback, that would be much appreciated. And I'm hoping in the next month or so, we're going to have our first guest on board. So yeah, I look forward to that, and I look forward to keep trying my best. I wish you all the best on your journey as well.